Good morning. How is everybody this lovely Friday morning? Thank you for joining me on my Facebook Live this morning. Um, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Paula Hoger. I started Shake-a-Paw dog training in Kempville, Ontario in 1998. Over the years, I've dabbled in many dog sports and activities such as obedience and tracking, scenting, agility, dock diving, probably some others that I've forgotten. And soon my heart got set on agility. And in the last couple of years, I've also worked on and competed in scent work, which I find the most amazing sport. What I love about dog sports for me and my students, and when I started, is the incentive to keep training your dogs. It really doesn't matter what sport you choose. What matters is you get your dog out, you mentally stimulate them, the dog's learning new things, you're building your relationship with your dog. Most of our dogs lead pretty boring lives. And remember, most of our dogs were originally bred to be working dogs. So it's like doing activities with your kids because it's good for them, it's good for your dog. And the more you mentally and physically train your dog and exhaust your dog, the less damage and badly behaved he is in the house. So it's a win-win for all of you. Taking classes or participating in dog sports brings mental challenges and stimulations, especially with winter around the corner and the beginning of our hibernation if you live in somewhere where there's snow. Check out what's available in your area and don't forget the plethora of stuff available online. It's amazing what they're now teaching online. We are so very lucky to have access to so much information and classes and stuff you can learn on at home. Uh, yeah, it's not going out, and your dog doesn't get to see other dogs, but you can still do a lot of work. And in some cases, I find the dogs learn much better at home where you take away. I get people calling me all the time, oh, I want a class because my dog needs that stimulation. No, I think your dog needs to learn the skills at home where he's calm and can think. And then you add distractions and you can manufacture distractions at home. A bowl of food on the floor. Can your dog function and do the work, whatever the work is, with a bowl of food on the floor? That's a good start too. Can he do it next to a dog? Shake-a-Paw offers both remote scent classes and agility classes all year long in South Mountain if you are local to us. As I go through the live today, feel free to ask questions and please write stuff in the comments. I will answer throughout the live, so just ask away. If you are listening to this as a recording, let me know by using #replay in the comment section, and please feel free to ask anything as you watch the playback because again, I will check back regularly and answer questions. For those of you on the call this morning, thank you for joining me. Please feel free to say hello and tell me where you're from and something about your dog, your favorite thing about your dog. Do you guys dress up your dogs for Halloween? I would love to see some pictures. Yeah, I never do. I always want to, I always plan to, and I never get around to it, so I don't have any cute pictures, but I would love to see your cute pictures. While we give people a couple of minutes to join us, I want to talk about something that came up for me this week. Your dog does not stay up plotting on how to make you crazy or how to piss you off. And I know some days it really feels like that, but I promise you he doesn't. Um, Remember your dog, and for me, I have to remember my students are doing the best they can with the information they have available to them. And this is something I remind myself on a regular basis. They're not doing something to piss me off. They're doing it the best they can, whether my dog, my students, my son. It's something to always remind yourself because it puts you into a much better mental state to be able to help them figure out what's going on. Um, Hold on, we have some comments. Hello, Helen. Oh, you're getting your puppy next week. Helen, what kind of dog are you getting? Congratulations. So exciting to be getting a puppy. Um, so in my agility classes, every time you start an exercise, you have to set your dog up. You get your dog beside you, facing the same direction so that your dog is ready to move forward to the exercise. I call this their setup. And we work on this right from the first session, first or second or third class, I'm like, this is how you start to set up your dog. For those of you who do obedience, it's like a finish. And it's something I find I am constantly going, you didn't set up your dog properly. You didn't set up your dog properly. I'm constantly nagging about it. And I hate when I'm nagging because I know it's not effective for my students. It's not effective for my dogs. It's not effective for me. So this week I had an epiphany. I realized that the reason they're not doing their setup is not they're ignoring me, because that's what I feel like. And I took it personally. I was like, why aren't you listening to me? Why don't you see the importance of this? Instead, I realized they're thinking so hard of the exercise about to happen that they can't focus on the beginning, which is the setup. That was like a big, huge light bulb for me, and made me a whole lot more compassionate when I'm helping them remember to do their setup, instead of, why are you not doing the setup? The solution for this is, in our warm-ups, we're going to start doing setups. So it's right there at the beginning of their brain and their dog remembers how to do it. And then I am going to remind them when they're going out to the exercise. I'm usually like, remember to do this, remember to do this. Part of my reminders is going to be, hey, remember to do your setup. So remember this when you're training your dogs. They are not purposely doing something wrong. Your dog is not purposely peeing on the carpet. If he's peeing on the carpet, he has a misunderstanding. He thinks that's the toilet. Mindset is so important when you're training. Your dog is not purposely pissing you off. Just remember that. And the more you stay in that mindset and you give them the benefit of the doubt, the better your brain will be set up to find solutions instead of just getting annoyed. Okay, so Helen, thank you so much. I try to be helpful. Okay, a Pouchon. Okay, I gotta say that's my first Pouchon. So I'm assuming Poodle Bichon. Very cute. Will it be white like a Bichon, or will your puppy be a different color? Let me know. Okay, so let's keep going. Oh, another situation where I see a lot of people forgetting the setup, and we'll talk about it further today, is when you start walking, you have to start from a place of calm. It's not you walk out the front door, your dog dragging you down the street, and that's where people are thinking about getting to the walk and therefore forgetting to get organized and get the dog collected before they start. Okay, so back to the topic for today. Loose leash walking. Loose leash walking is a big one. It's something that the majority of my students have a problem with, and something I've been teaching since I started, and not always with a lot of success. So I'm always, and it was something with my very first dog that was horrible how bad he pulled. So it's something I'm always looking for better ways to explain to the dog what is expected. So I'll give you what I've got right now. Loose leash walking is a huge problem for a lot of dogs and owners. And I want you to realize it's a really hard skill to teach. Your dog is not being bad. You're not being not a good owner. It's a really hard skill to teach. And I'll give you an example. A long time ago, when I was still trying to figure out about loose leash walking, I remember watching the search and rescue dogs who participated in 9/11 being honored at the Westminster Dog Show. So they paraded all these dogs in between the showing, and 75% of these dogs were on prong collars. And I was like, huh, that's amazing. These dogs are incredible. They're super amazing, well-trained dogs who risk their lives to hunt for survivors through that horrible situation. But yet, they wore prong collars because they didn't know how to walk on a loose leash on a buckle collar. So I was like, wow, that really proves to you how hard this is. Walking on a loose leash for a dog is like driving your car without a speedometer when you're running late. The need to get to where you're going pulls you forward, and the speedometer, which is how you usually control your speed, hopefully, for some of us more than others, keeps you controlled. But as soon as you eliminate the speedometer, that thing you can check, then you're going faster and faster and faster and faster. This is what happens to the dog. Your dog is walking down the street and the environment is constantly pulling them forward. And then on top of that, most handlers regularly reward this behavior by letting them get to where they're going. and at least some of the time, let them pull to the bush to have a pee, the neighbor, the front door. It's a challenge. So I have met dogs who pull so hard that they make their tongue go blue. I've seen a dog almost pass out because he was pulling so hard. It's ridiculous how much pain. And it's also an incredible amount of damage to their spine and their trachea. There are a couple of, oh, before we keep going, let me look at comments. She's a tan color. Oh, that'll be beautiful, Helen. Julie, how are you? How's the little Sisu doing? Karen, good morning, watching from British Columbia. We have two puppers, 2-year-old border collie and a 5-month-old Aussie. Well, I do love my border collies, but that must be quite the household with a 2-year-old border collie and a 5-month-old Aussie. Lots of people don't have both those breeds. Good to see that. Okay, there are a couple of factors you have to consider when you create a dog who can walk on a loose leash. First, does the dog understand how to walk on a loose leash? The concept of not engaging into the pressure. So I'll talk about it a bit more, but dogs have opposition reflex. So as soon as you pull, they pull the opposite way, which is pulling on leash. I want to teach my puppy right from the beginning, or my adult dog, pressure on the leash means come towards me. Second, can the dog mentally do this? Can the dog keep his brain and his body in the environment? So the first part's pretty easy. It's simple to train. I teach my dogs that pressure on the leash means come towards me. Dogs have that opposition reflex. So when you put a puppy on a collar for the first time, most of them, as soon as they feel pressure, will dig in. They'll just dig in for a second because they're puppies, but some of them will dig in more and more. And then you get some puppies who balk and do this and won't walk. So I want to work on that right away. I put the dog on leash in a non-distracting environment where he feels safe. So I won't do this with a worried dog. I put pressure on the leash by moving away from them. And as soon as the dog relaxes the pressure, moves towards me, I reward. So the dog learns pressure on the leash means come towards me, instead of me putting my puppy, and somebody said it's like a divining rod. You put the puppy and just do this, and the dog walks around dragging you to the leaves. Blowing leaves are always hard with puppies. The leaf, the person, the trunk, the tree. And you're teaching your dog every time you feel pressure on the leash, if you want something, keep pulling. Okay. Oh, Julie says Sisu is out running with the snow geese. Lovely. I love the snow geese. The second part is the hard part with loose leash walking. Dogs that understand how to walk on the loose leash. What does that mean? So you really have to think about what you want. When you're creating a behavior, you can't say, I want my dog not to pull, because you can't teach a dog not to do something. You have to teach a dog to do something. So let's try to define it a little bit. To me, it means understanding that everything they see is not available. When the dog understands that things like other dogs, squirrels, bushes aren't available, they will stop trying. And I know that's hard to believe, but it's true. They try, and by try I mean pull, because their history is they have learned that pulling gets them what they want. It's really hard not to let your puppy pull towards whatever. And somehow people think not pulling means you can't pull them. They don't realize it means no, they can't pull you, not you can't pull them. Does that make sense? Okay, so I'll give you an example of understanding what's available and what's not available, and I'll give you a human example. Your neighbor gets a brand new car. You know it's not available to you. You know you can't even get in it and go for a drive. You may, if you know them well enough, but that's a whole different story. And you know it's not available. Why? Because all your life you've understood the neighbor's brand new car is not yours. You learned this right from a little kid. That is not available. Your dog thinks that dog walking down the street's available. Why? Because you taught him, when you see a dog, I'm going to walk towards. If I walk in town with my dogs, I'm constantly telling people, no, you may not let your dog say hello to my dog. There is no benefit to me that I can think of letting dogs drag to each other. But yet I see it all the time. So back to the puppy on leash. You have a puppy on leash. Confident puppies are going to pull towards things. I want that. I want that confident puppy. But I need to teach them on leash. Those things are not available. When I used to do classes and we go back to the pulling, almost every single person, if they had a confident dog, would walk into the room and let their dogs pull towards each other to say hello. But yet those are the same people whose biggest complaint was my dog pulls on leash and my dog drags me down the street to go see another dog. My neighbor almost got hit by a car. There was a dog out in the front yard. She was walking her dog who had horrible leash manners, and her dog decided to cross the street and she couldn't stop him. And luckily, she got by before the car went by, but honestly, it was so close. This this understanding of walking on a loose leash is for your safety and your dog's safety, especially in Canada where it does get icy. And if your dog decides to pull and you hit a patch of ice, now you're either down on the ground or sliding, which is super dangerous. So I have been saying this for years. Don't let your dog pull towards other dogs. And I feel people don't understand that pulling that they're allowing, that letting them say hello is why their dogs are pulling on leash. You have to decide what you want. There's a quote that I love and use in my life on a regular basis. Don't give up what you want most for what you want now. Everybody wants that friendly puppy that says hello, but most people also want that dog that walks on a loose leash. I get it. I have a super friendly puppy. Wicca is that, oh, I love everybody and I love every dog type of dog. So I'm constantly having to make choices of, no, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. She's 8 months old. She's starting to get it. But when she was 10 weeks old, she felt everybody needed to visit with her. And this is where I use permissions. Because let's face it, you're going to let your dog say hello. But if you use permissions as a reward, you're rewarding the calm behavior. If I'm going to allow Wicca to visit a person, she has to be calm first, and then gets told go see, which gives her permission to go visit. Once she's been cued to go see, if she pulls, it's fine because she's been cued to go see and now she's allowed. So once the go see supersedes the don't pull. And if possible, I'll drop the leash so she's not dragging me, but I will allow leash pulling once I've said go see. The permission to go see is rewarding the self-control, building more and more value for ignoring people. By the time she's 1.5 years, 2, she will have matured. She will have learned how to keep her brain in her head. She will also, because I'm constantly doing this, the people will get less rewarding and the ignoring them will get more rewarding because it'll become easier and easier and easier because she practices it all the time. Every time we go out in public, I expect her to walk by people. The other problem with this, if every time you see someone, they're calm for a second and you say, go see, that will become a pattern. So most of the time she sees people when we're out in public, we are just walking by them and she doesn't even try anymore. She's like, yep, there's a person, I keep walking, which is my goal. Be careful with that. To me, my dog being able to walk on a loose leash is a non-negotiable skill. I've had my very first dog pulled like a truck. I hated it. And it really affected me when I wanted to go places with him. This allows me to travel with my dogs and do the things I want with my dogs over their lifetime. My dogs go places. I've had my dogs downtown Toronto walking down the street. I've had them in hotels. You can't do that with a dog who pulls like a truck. This means I am very, very aware of what Wicca's learning when she's on leash. And like I've said earlier, a big no-no for me is letting dogs say hello to each other on leash. I find it screws up their body language and sets you up for potential leash reactivity because remember, if you've been listening to my lives, some of leash reactivity can be due to frustration. So dogs who have learned every time I see a dog, I pull towards it. Now I see a dog and you're not letting me pull towards it. Now I'm going to get frustrated, which is going to look like barking and howling. Tracy has a question. How long do you wait for the calm and do you treat the calm? Livy howls when she wants to get to something. Go back and practice the get it game. So the get it game is how I start to teach them to be calm before they get it. So even last night in agility, remember how I made you hold her collar till she settled down? That would be the beginning of what you're talking about. Yes, I would treat the calm because then it's working. We're back to ODR game. So yes, sometimes I treat the calm, sometimes I say go see, but with Livy, because she has such a hard time, I'd be doing a whole lot more treating the calm than letting her go see. So now I've talked to you about how you end up reinforcing the pulling habit. Let me tell you about how I build the loose leash walking. You guessed it. It's using the ODR game. ODR stands for observe, don't react. The first step of loose leash walking is self-control, the understanding that everything you see is not available. I will put the link to our ODR game ebook in the comments at the end of the live. Before I take my dog for a walk, I want to see if my dog can handle the environment. Remember, the second factor of loose leash training is, can they handle the environment? This is where the ODR game gives you the information on whether or not your dog can mentally handle the environment. My Chesapeake could walk beautifully on a loose leash in my backyard. As soon as she was out in public, she pulled like a truck. And at the time, this was a long time ago, I didn't realize I just needed to give her a minute. If I'd played ODR game, the brain would have arrived and then she could have learned how to walk on a loose leash. Instead, we'd get out of the car and start walking and she would pull. Start in a quiet environment that might be your front step. This is, if I'm working on loose leash walking, there's a place you walk into your house. It's a great place to start going. If I don't have a brain here, we don't continue. It's also the place where the dogs are the craziest because they're like, we're going, we're going, we're going. And this is where in your need to go for a walk, you forget to wait for calm. Your leash hand is anchored to your body. How is your dog responding? Is he pulling, lunging? Is he just pulling and lunging with no focus? Or is he 100%, I want to go that way? If he's pulling and lunging with no focus, you just stand there, hand anchored to your body, and you wait for him to calm down. If he's focused on something, turn around, go back in the house. Wait till he's calm, step out, do it again. After 3 or 4 times, your dog's like, what? And then you're like, oh, good boy, let's take a step. So that's how you start doing it. But if your habit, especially if you already have a pulling habit, that walking out that front door or whatever door is your dog's instantly going to go to straight lunge. Okay, so you're waiting. If he's just pulling and lunging with no focus, just stand there and wait. You're waiting for the brain to return to the body. You will know when this happens because your dog will start to settle down. He'll be on all 4 feet. He'll be quiet. He may even give himself a yawn or a shake. These are ways the dogs help themselves to calm down. And I would calmly praise either when they shake their body out or when they give you a big yawn. If after a minute or so he still hasn't calmed down, go back in the house. Play ODR game in the house, then open the door and try it again. If your dog is pulling and focused on something, go back in the house, try once again, wait till he's calm, open the door. And this is a dog, if your dog's having a hard time on that first step, I'd be working a sit with the door open or ODR with the door open. Okay, you can do it inside the house. Now, if we step out, can you still find the brain? Or does somehow crossing that threshold lose the brain? Remember the quote, don't give up what you want most for what you want now. If you want to create a dog who walks on a loose leash, you are going to have to commit to never allowing your dog to pull again. And for the next 6 months, especially if they have a habit of pulling, it's going to suck. But then the rest of the dog's life, you're going to have a dog who walks well on leash. Okay, so once he's calm, your dog will make one of 2 choices. He will look out to the environment on a loose leash. You can reward this a couple of times. Reaching forward, putting the cookie in his mouth, I'm rewarding him watching the environment. Or he's going to turn around and look at you. If he turns and looks at you, take a step or 2, see what he does. I take 1 or 2 steps and then again I stop and I'm like, are you still with me? If he's like, nope, at the end of the leash, Okay, then we do ODR game again. Trust me, the first few weeks, you're not leaving the driveway. But once you can do the driveway, everything else becomes easier. Helen, I just saw you say I froze on you. Hopefully it's not my connection. Hopefully I'm back on, but somebody let me know if it's working for them or you're all frozen. Of course, if you're frozen, you don't hear me say that, but we do the best we can. So I continued this. So I'll continue doing ODR game all the way down the driveway. I might have a little play, maybe sit and do a recall, but my goal is to not allow the dog to pull. So my goal is good, calm walking all the way down the driveway. When the dog chooses to give up the environment, pay attention to me. Sometimes I walk, sometimes I work skills like sit, down, or come. The whole point is putting lots of value for that calm behavior and no value for that pulling behavior. So I realize for some people, not, oh, good, good, oh, good. People are saying it's all good, good. I know some of you are thinking, how is my dog going to get exercise? So here's the thing. Walking for most dogs is not exercise. In fact, walking while pulling hard on leash is just hard on you and your dog. If you have a tiny dog, Chihuahua tiny, or your little Pouchon coming, and you walk fast, then yeah, you could. I'll give you that. That could be exercise. Or if you jog with your dog, that could be considered exercise. But other than that, if you have the average dog, walking on leashes work and not exercise. So you have to find other ways to exercise your dog. If you truly want, and even once he's walking well on leash, you still have to find other ways to exercise your dog. Walking on leash is work. Walking on leash requires a lot of thought from you, a lot of thought from your dog. It's now people call decompression walks, which I think are a great idea, but I have a problem doing them when you're walking on leash. So make your decompression walks look completely different than you're walking on a loose leash. Put a lot, if you can allow your dog off leash or you have a fenced in area where your dog can go off leash, great. If not, get yourself a long line, possibly put them on a harness and let them wander. But I don't do this down the sidewalk. I do this in a park. So my dog starts to understand the contextual cues. This is a decompression walk, do whatever you want. This is we're going for a walk. But it is really hard to train loose leash walking with a dog who doesn't have enough exercise. So even I would, let's say you go to the off leash park, take your dog to the off leash park, then go home and try to do the leash training, not do the leash training, then go to the off leash park. So now you have a dog that can walk a few steps on a loose leash. When I start increasing the number of steps, I now want to be able to reward the loose leash walking. I don't want to reward looking at me because that isn't what I want. I want them to walk down the street, looking at the environment and staying on a loose leash. So what I do is I recall them. When my dog is walking well, I will randomly just call their name, take a few steps back and reward. This builds value for loose leash walking because remember, and I've talked about this in previous lives, when you use a cue and it works, come, their name, it has value. So whatever they're doing when you use the cue will reinforce that behavior. So if my dog's walking along nicely and I call them, I am reinforcing walking along nicely. Whatever your dog is doing is being reinforced by that cue. So in this case, it's loose leash walking. This also has the added bonus of building value for my recall in a bunch of situations. As my dog gets more experienced, I might go, oh, look, we just walked by a dog. I'm going to call you and reward you. So now you're practicing walking by a dog, reinforcing that, and reinforcing coming when called when you walk by a dog. I can't talk about loose leash walking without talking about anti-pulling devices. My current preference is a head halter. I've used various things over the years and I've been pretty stuck on the head halter for a while now. But I do understand that you have to get your dog used to a head halter, and a lot of people that the dogs argue and scratch and the whole bit. So a lot of people don't use them, and that's fine. All the anti-pulling devices work on some dogs. I don't think there's such a thing as any anti-pulling device that works on every dog. Even one of my border collies, he hated his gentle leader, but I switched him to a Nutrix and he was fine. I do use the Nutrix collars. I do like the Nutrix collars. I find them a little complicated to put on, but I really like the way they work. They attach at the back of the head instead of under the chin. I use them for my shorter dogs because I'm concerned, because the head halter attaches here, I'm concerned of the twisting of the neck. So with it attaching at the back, that works much better. So here's the thing. I find any of the anti-pulling devices on the market will only work for a limited amount of time unless you follow a loose leash training plan. Oh, good, Helen, I'm glad you're back. If you continue to do what you were doing before, it taught your dog to pull. So he will eventually, most dogs will eventually get comfortable with the discomfort caused by the anti-pulling device. And I don't care what they say, every single anti-pulling device works on discomfort. It causes discomfort for pulling, so therefore the dog stops pulling. But if you allow them to go to the same habits as they did before the anti-pulling device, then most dogs end up pulling almost as hard. Because you haven't changed anything. You've just added some discomfort, and like the dog who made his tongue go blue, you keep reinforcing it, they will overcome any discomfort. So, you know how at the beginning I talked about sometimes we all need reminders to stay on track? This is what I feel the head halter does. It doesn't teach my dog not to pull. It reminds my dog not to pull when he makes a mistake. So dog goes to pull, feels the pressure from the head halter, and that reminds him to keep his brain in his body. On my personal dogs, I usually put a head halter on around 4 months old, or whenever I start to see pulling. One of them was 3 months old. Maybe it was Wicca. And then they usually wear their head halter till they're about 1.5 to 2 years old. Wicca, even though she started pulling early, I find does a better job of loose leash walking at this age, because she's 8 months, than any of my other ones did. But the other 2 border collies were boys. And before that, I was just learning to use a head halter. So I'm going with it's because she's a girl. How I decide when they are ready is when I see them not needing the head halter. So they're just calmly walking down the street or wherever we are. Once I remove the head halter, I leave it attached to the handle of my leash for another few months. So it is always there ready if we get into a situation where my dog can't keep it together. So Debbie, unfortunately, my girls have been trained on a harness and do fine. Now I'm trying to use their collar, but they get nuts and all training is gone. I work with them apart and just working in the yard and driveway. So Debbie, I have a couple of questions. Are you using an anti-pulling harness, or are you using just a regular harness? Do they have, I'm not sure. Have you done, okay, go back to the beginning of the talk and look at teaching them pressure on the leash. That might be the problem. If they're not used to collars and leashes at all, they might be panicking when they feel pressure on their neck. So have you guys tried anti-pulling devices? What have you used? What has worked for you? I know around here, the Jaywalker and the Easy Walk are super popular. My concern with those is I don't like the way they sit on the front of the shoulder because it's interfering with gait. The dog won't extend their arm enough because they have something on the front. And some of these dogs, I realize, live in town and get walked a lot on leash. So if every day you're walking your dog with a short gait, that's going to screw stuff up eventually. Okay, last piece of advice. When you walk, walk. This means don't let your dog sniff, don't let your dog pull, just walk. Hand is anchored to your body and you just walk. Doesn't matter how fast you are. Like some people are like, oh, I don't walk fast. Walk as fast as you walk, but just walk with purpose. Like if you were going on a walk for your benefit, for your exercise, not a saunter, I'm going to let my dog sniff walk. Your dog will quickly learn to walk with you and naturally find a spot that is comfortable with the amount of leash you give them. I find the leash anchored to your body is a huge, huge factor. What I discovered over the years of training is people who taught their dogs to walk with a stroller, the dogs walked better than without, because with a stroller, you're holding onto the stroller and you've got your leash hand on the stroller and the leash hand never moves. And from that, we went to the anchored hand, because now the dog goes, I go that way and you're walking, and I go that way and you're walking. And sooner or later, they're like, what if I stop jerking because it's uncomfortable? And they're like, oh, if I walk here, I'm comfortable. Does that make sense? Okay, let me take a minute to answer questions. I don't know the difference between, I think the only two anti-pulling harnesses are the Jaywalk and the Easy Walk. Usually they have some sort of restriction, like a piece of leash that pulls on them and tightens the harness. Those are the anti-pulling. Julie, I put a gentle leader on Sisu and it's so much easier. She walks beside me and doesn't like pressure. Same thing when she tries to lean down and sniff. That's much less. Yeah, the sniffing, without a doubt, is just anchor your hand to your body and just keep walking. As soon as they try to sniff and you pull up, you tend to stop walking. So now they're pulling down, you're pulling up, and it's a fight. Whenever you argue with your dog, whenever you fight with your dog, you're bringing value to the thing you're trying to get them to stop. When you're walking and your hands on your body, you're walking along, they go, oh, I'm going to sniff, damn it. Oh, I'm going to sniff. Oh, and it just, they eventually are like, oh, I don't sniff on a walk. I was in town the other day with Wicca, and yeah, there was a piece of sandwich on the floor, on the ground, and I just sped up and just kept walking, and she was like, sandwich, okay, we're walking. So you do that 20 times. She's like, sandwich not available. It was perfect. Okay, back to the notes. So your dog will quickly learn to walk with you and naturally find a spot that is comfortable with the amount of leash you give them. So the difference between heeling and walking on a loose leash, heeling is a very specific spot relative to my body. It's ankles lined up with my ankle. Walking on a loose leash means I am going to adjust my leash depending on the situation. If I'm in a crowd, it's going to be shorter. If I'm in somewhere where there's lots of room, I'm going to give them more leash. So the dog changes their position and fingers it out every time due to the length of leash. So when they go sniff the bush, you keep walking. When they go to pull towards the toy in somebody's yard or the dog, you keep walking. Really, people, you just keep walking. I find when I watch people walk down the street, they're sauntering and the dog's like, I want to sniff that. I want to sniff that. I want to sniff that. Just walk. I also see this in people who jog with their dogs. When you jog, you're jogging for your benefit as much as the dog. So you don't let them screw around. And the people who jogged with their dogs, the dog jogging would be amazing. The dog walking would suck. And I'm like, what's the difference? The difference was there was no screwing around. When you walk, you walk. So interesting fact. We can move a horse because he thinks we can move a horse. He thinks we can move him. If a horse knew how much bigger he was than us, we wouldn't be able to move him. Dogs are the same thing. I love going to dog shows and watching these little tiny ladies on these little tiny leashes walking these 150-pound dogs. And you can tell the dog wouldn't even dream of doing something inappropriate because they've understood right from when they're little tiny babies, this is how you walk at a dog show. So it's a mindset. We put our puppies on leash and let them do whatever they want and then say, now we're going to walk. And they're like, no, I'm going to do this and this and this. So always remember that it's a mindset. Your dog can learn not to pull on leash. Tracy, prong, easy walk, gentle leader. Gentle leader seems to work the best. Yeah, I agree. Some dogs, you have to go through a number of things. And finally, you're like, this is it. I just recently bought a new gentle leader, honestly, for Wicca because it came in red and it's pretty. And the Halties only come in black. But the Haltie I know over the years has made some lovely additions. Like now they have padding on the nose part, and they have the clip that attaches to the collar, which I think were all great additions. The Gentle Leader, I was surprised to see, looks exactly the same as it did 15 years ago. So I really like the clip on the Halti that attaches to the collar. If your dog ever gets the head halter off, that's a nice safety to have. So if somebody's looking to buy one of these, I would recommend the Halti over the Gentle Leader. So if the dog's pulling to the side, I don't even worry about the head halter. But as soon as the dog's pulling forward, then I use a head halter because you're walking in that direction, so you'd be reinforcing it. The more you do this at a good pace, the more it becomes, you don't have to, they learn to just, nothing's available on leash, and you end up creating the dog that you can take anywhere and go for a walk and not worry about it. If you think your dog needs to go to the bathroom, I pull over. Literally, I stop my walking, pull over to the side, give them the cue, which for my dogs is go toilet, give them the leash, give them a couple of minutes, and then we're like, okay, let's go. And we go back to walking. I remember, again, my very first dog, and finding the perfect place to go to the bathroom took hours. No, now, honestly, if you don't need to go that bad, you're fine and keep going. So I pull over on a place, like with my boy dogs or even my girl dog, I'll pull over in a place where I'm pretty sure other dogs have peed. So they're more likely to pee. But if you need to go, you're going to go. And if you don't need to go, then we're going to keep walking. And I'll try again in 10 minutes if I think you need to go. But it's a good, again, if you want to do stuff with your dogs, take them out into the real world, the ability to say, go to the bathroom, and they go is handy. So do you let your dogs do whatever they want on walks, or do you power walk, and how is that working for you? Let me know. Okay. I hope you have enjoyed this Facebook Live on loose leash walking. I want to finish with a note. All dogs need to have an opportunity, ideally daily, to just be dogs. So as much as I don't let them screw around on a loose leash walk, I give my dogs an opportunity to be off leash every day, or pretty well every day. I highly recommend you find a way to give your dog some freedom. Off leash is possible, but I know that's not always possible. If your dog can't be trusted off leash and you don't have access to a fenced in area, then put your dog on a lawn line that drags behind him. With my Siberian, I had a 75-foot line that dragged behind him because, he's a Siberian. The other thing I've seen work really well is you've got to get a proper harness for this, but you put a 20, 30-foot line on them and attach weights. So laundry jugs full of sand work really well, and you tie the rope to the weights. So your dog can run and move and do whatever, can't run away because there's too much weight attached. So my mother-in-law used to do that with her cat, and it worked perfect. So it's just another option to figure out a way to get your dog allowed to be a dog. I just want it not to look like your loose leash walk. And I don't let them do this on sidewalks. I find a field or a park somewhere that doesn't look like my loose leash walking. When I'm ready to loose leash walk, I change their equipment. So I'll put the short leash on, and then I start to walk, and that cues them, oh, now we're walking. Now we're not doing the decompression walk. If you need some help teaching your dog to go safely off leash, message me and I can help you with that. And there are some Facebook Lives on off leash in the earlier segments. This will give the dog the opportunity to be a dog. And I truly believe dogs need an opportunity to be a dog. I just don't think the same walk every day is necessarily that opportunity. Give a release cue. Tell your dog, go play, go sniff. Give the dog that permission cue, because then you can build, you're calm. Now I've given you permission to go, not get out of the car and the dog's like, I get to go free. Always building those permission cues. What do you do for your dogs to decompress? Any last questions before I go? Looking for help creating a training plan to teach your dog to walk on a loose leash, or anything else, message me. I do remote and local consults. Join us next Friday, November 13th. I'll have to come up with something spooky for my next Facebook Live. And let me see, Julie. If we didn't have off leash time, it'd be hard to get her energy down. Through training time indoors does tire her. The running off leash sure helps. Her recalls, even with the Snokies, is amazing. Oh, you guys have done such a great job with her recalls. So, for those of us in Canada, as much as I take my dog off leash every day, there will be times in the winter where I can't because not the snow. We can handle snow. It's the ice. Sometimes it's glare ice, and we'll go a couple of weeks where, you know, they go out, they go to the bathroom, and it's good because it teaches me ways to train and exercise without having to get them off leash. My goal is always to get them off leash, but sometimes it can happen. Strength work is a big way I keep them fit, and exercise when I can't go outside. I do own a dog treadmill, but one of my dogs is 11, so he doesn't need it. And right now the other one's 8 months old and too young to be on a treadmill. I attached a yellow leash to their 50-foot lead so I can see the end. Yes, I used to with my Siberian. I had a ball at the end. So I had, they're called monkey fist, but basically it's a big knot. And I put some of the orange marking tape so that I could find it. Thank you very much, Karen. I'm so glad you enjoyed it. Thank you, Julie. Thank you very much. Okay, guys, I will see you next Friday. Any questions, please put them on the comments. Bye, guys.